Hi, today I wanted to talk to you about two of our new units, which is the TS-253E and TS-453E. These are our new long-term availability NAS for business and professionals. So you can see them on screen there. I'm going to run through some of the main features first, and then at the end I'll do a live demo of the full setup from factory settings. Installing the full operating system, going through setting up the drives, and adding an SSD cache as well. So here's the main features of the TS-253E or 453E. Both are the same. The literal difference is one has 2 bays, one has 4 bays. So anybody looking for stability in any projects you're rolling out until at least 2029, these will be available all the way till then, completely unchanged. They come with two 2.5 gig LAN ports, which does also work at 1 gig and 100 meg if you have slower networks to connect them to. There are dual M.2 PCIe SSD expansion slots as well, and these are Gen 3. And we've also got dual 4K HDMI ports. The RAM on board is 8 gigs, so it's non-upgradable. It's on board, it's built in to the max that the CPU supports. So 8 gig is the max, and that's what it comes with. And it's got a 2.6 gigahertz quad-core CPU. You can see the version there, the J6412, that supports lots of different applications on the NAS. Because it's Intel architecture, all the apps that we've got will work with it. To give you a look at the front of the NAS here, so we've got the 2 bay and the 4 bay. Again, the only difference between the two is the 4 bay is a little bit bigger with 2 extra drive bays, but you've got LED indicators for all the drives as well as the M.2s that are there. A USB One Touch copy button that you can program for different purposes in hybrid backup sync. There's a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port on the front, and that's a 10 gig port, and all the drive bays are lockable as well. If we go around and look at the back of the NAS, so here you can see the two separate NAS. The fan is much larger on the 4 bay, so we can spin it much slower to keep it cool, so both are very quiet. So they've got the two HDMI ports there, the two 2.5 gig LAN ports. You do still have a couple of USB 2 ports, which are handy if you're using a virtual machine or you're interacting direct with the HDMI interface. You can use the slower ports for things like keyboards and mice that you might want to plug in. And there's also on the back another USB 3.2 port there as well, Gen 2 port. On the back you've also got Kensington locks and 12 volt DC power inputs, so there's a power brick that comes with this, so it keeps the heat of the power supply out of the NAS as well. If we have a look at the M.2 PCIe implementation, so you do have to remove the chassis. So on the 4 bay at least, I've done it on that one. There are 4 screws around the back that you have to take out. The top of the chassis just slides away, and you've got the 2 M.2 slots, and we provide the screws for those in the accessories box that comes with the NAS. And you can use those SSDs for multiple purposes. You can use them for just a plain simple volume. You can use them for SSD caching, which is what I'll demo later. Or you can also use them for our Q tier, which is automatic tiered storage as well. So you can have an ultra fast tier on the SSDs and a normal storage tier on the hard drives if you wish. And you can also put SSDs in those hard drive bays up front. So if you wanted to use 2.5-inch SATA SSDs, you can do that as well. So here's just a little explanation of the SSD cache. So we can support up to a 16 terabyte SSD cache with this NAS. Because it's got 8 gig of RAM, we do support a 16 terabyte cache. For other NAS that have less RAM, the cache size would be smaller. So here it will support up to a 16 terabyte cache on these NAS. Here's a performance chart of the two 2.5 gig LAN ports bonded together, so trunked together into a switch. So here you can achieve up to 578 megabytes a second on the megabytes a second on the download using a Windows file transfer, and even when using encrypted volumes, the performance only really drops off a little bit on the right, so you lose just less than 20 megabytes a second when you're using encryption. So you've got the test environment shown below there if you wanted to duplicate this yourself. So moving on to a quick comparison, you can pause it here. I won't stay here too long, but this is showing you a comparison between the current model here, the 253E and the 453E, compared to the previous versions that this is replacing, which is the 251 Plus or the 451 Plus. So you can see that the CPU is faster. It's also supporting DDR4 RAM instead of DDR3. It's got the M.2 slots, which we never had before. You've got a much faster Ethernet port connectivity, so instead of the two 1 gig LAN ports, you've got the two 2.5 gigs. So that would be a max of 2 gigs previously. Now you can do 5 gigs. And it's also got the two HDMIs, both capable of 4K, whereas previously we could only do 1080p with the single one. So that's a good overview there. Again, pause that if you need to see it. You can do this comparison on our website in the product comparison page. They do ship with a 3-year warranty as standard, and you can upgrade that to 2 additional years for 5 years maximum. The code to do that is written there, so LW-NAS-Peach-2 year. That's going to be able to take you all the way up to a 5-year warranty on these if you need. So now we'll move straight into the live demo of the NAS. So here's the 453, so I've got the 4-bay variant. And here I'm going to go through the full setup wizard of QTS5. On this unit. We'll fast forward the bits where you just have to sit around waiting, so you don't have to do that. So I'm going to click Start Smart Installation first of all. You can click here for Check for Update. I'm already on the latest one, which it should confirm, which it does. I'm going to click Next. Now it's asking for the name of the NAS. So here I usually just call my NAS the name of the NAS. So in this case, TS-453E. Username, I'll just use Craig. The password, I'll just pick a password that I use. So remember what you type here, because that's what you're going to have to do at the final stage once the NAS is set up. This is what you'll log into the NAS with. This is your admin account effectively. So you'll do all the other settings using these credentials later. You can create other accounts for other users later, but for now it's only going to do the admin account. So we'll click Next. I'm not going to save the password. Now it's asking about what time zone you're in, the time server. I usually leave this as default. Click Next. I'm fine with leaving it automatic, but if you want to set a static address, this is where you do it for your IP address. Click Next. Just a little confirmation that you're happy with all the settings, and then just click Apply. Just a little warning that it will erase all data on the drives. If you wanted to keep anything, definitely select No here. So I'm going to say Initialize here. I'm fine with it doing that. So now it's going to run through the whole setup wizard, go through everything, give you some interesting bits to read here as it's doing it. But this will take a couple of minutes, and I'll come back to you when it's finished. We're looking for a button at the end that'll be blue, and it'll say Go to NAS Management, and that will be where we log in with the information. So I'll just wait for that to pop up here. Okay, so we can see that the NAS has finished setting itself up. So now we've got the blue button at the bottom that says Go to NAS Management. So we're going to click that, and it'll bring us to the main login screen for the NAS. So here I'm going to log in with the username I set up in the setup wizard and the password I created. Click Go. So I'm going to say don't save on the password. So now we've just got a couple of things to click through for data and privacy. I'm going to click Continue, scroll down. I recommend you read this. Click Continue. Then it's going to take us to the main home screen of the NAS, and it's going to point out a few things. So here's where the main menu is where you'd access most different things on the NAS. You got the control panel to configure any different settings on the NAS that are not generally app specific. There's the App Center, so you can download and add different apps. And also you've got the username at the top where you can do specific settings just for your account and different power options as well. So it's automatically going to open up the storage and snapshots window. Again, there's another little agreement to say yes or no to, so I'm just going to say no to that one. Welcome to storage and snapshots, a little wizard, so you can click through this and it'll tell you everything about why you would pick different modes, a little bit about the snapshots and how to use them. So I'm going to close that. And now it's showing me the configuration of the NAS. So no volumes, no pools, it's just a completely raw install right now. I've not done any customization except the name of the NAS, the username and password. So if I click down to disks, I'll show you what I'm using. So here I've got 4 20 terabyte WD red disks. So these ones in here, these are all connected up into the main big drive bays at the front. And at the bottom, I've also got some WD-Red SN700s as well. So I've got a couple ones of those, so 500 gigs. So I'll use those for an SSD cache later on. And we can see that they're currently connected at 3 PCIe Gen 3 × 2, so nice and fast for those. So the first thing I'm going to click is storage/snapshots. So now it's telling me there's no volumes and or pools. So for me, instead of doing a straight volume, I prefer to do volumes within pools. Gives a bit more flexibility, especially if you want to do things like snapshots or expansions later. I find it much simpler with storage pools. So I'm going to click New Storage Pool. I'm not going to enable QTier this time. This time I'm going to use the SSDs for a cache. So I'll ignore that one for now and just click Next. So here I'm going to select the first 4 disks. I want all 4 disks. Now I'm going to do something here I wouldn't recommend you do. It's just I don't want you to sit through a RAID rebuild that'll take a few hours. So I'm going to change my default selected RAID type here of RAID 5, and I'm going to change it to RAID 0, simply because it's just quicker to set up. So for the video here, I'm choosing RAID 0. I would recommend you pick pretty much any other mode. So 5, 6, 10, just pick anything else other than RAID 0. But I'm doing this for just speed for the video. So I'm going to click Next. So I personally disable the alert thresholds on the pools because I prefer it on the volumes. So I'm going to disable that there. I'm fine with all the other settings. Click Next, and it's just going to confirm here, new RAID group with 4 disks. In my case, it's a RAID 0. I hope you pick RAID 5 at least, so you can get different options here. So it's giving me all the total spaces that I'm going to have available, and I'm fine with that, and I'm going to click Create. Are you sure you want to erase the disks? I'm sure. So this will take a couple of seconds to do. So once this is done, it will create a pool. So the pool in this case is where the RAID is applied. So if you have selected a redundant RAID mode, that's where it's set. Every volume you create within that pool gets the benefit of the RAID mode you've selected. You don't have to do a separate RAID for every volume you create. So if you were to create a volume for, say, personal use and a volume for business use, you're not having to have a different set of redundant disks for each one. They can all be in the same pool, but separated by physical volumes that you can set instead. So we'll just wait for this to apply the storage pool, and then if it doesn't pop up, I think it will pop up and tell us that we now need a volume, because the volume is where the data is actually written. That's where the formatting's done. So we'll create a volume as well. So we'll just wait for that to appear. Okay, we can see we've got a storage pool there in the background. It says ready, and it's popped up an option here to say you must have a new volume now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click new volume. If you close this and you needed to do a volume, you can go create a new volume with the option at the top, but I'm just going to click new volume and it'll bring me straight there. So here you've got the options to choose thick volumes, thin volumes, or static volumes. The explanation of what's better or what suits you best is there. I'm going to leave it on thick volume, so I'm just going to leave it on the thick volume option it's got selected. There's a drop down for location. I've only got one storage pool, so that's the volume, that's the location it's going to be for me. So here I can see the free size here is just under 60 terabytes, so I'm going to click next on that one. It wants the volume capacity, so just for speed I'm going to say the first volume, let's just be 1 terabyte in size. Down here you've got some advanced settings, so here's where the alert threshold, I'll leave this one on, I want it on the volume instead. And you can create things like snapshot schedules and snapshot retentions if you need them, or you want to enable the encryption, that's done here as well. I'm just going to click next. Quick summary of what you're choosing, which I'm fine with, and I'm going to click finish. So here it's going to go off and create that volume. Now while the volume is being created, you can go and do other things on the NAS, so have a read of some of these pop-ups that were down the right hand side. So you can go through and see what all these mean while it's initializing. So that'll take a couple of minutes to get ready with the volume and format it. So while it's doing that, I'm going to click into the notice board here. And we can see that the get started steps, there's 3 steps to do. So it's recommending creating a storage space, which is what is happening right now. So you can see that's just changed to a tick. You can create or sign in with a Qnap ID. So this is recommended that if you have any licenses to add to the Qnap, or you want to associate it with our My Qnap Cloud Dynamic DNS functionality for remote access, you can do that there. And you can also set a security policy And if once you've set a security policy, it will tell you if you're meeting that security policy or not. So perhaps you've chosen a medium security policy, and that requires that the passwords must be more complex. It will tell you if any passwords are not complex. So I'll close that one out. We can do all that later. I'm telling you about the Help Center, so you can click here and it'll take you to the Help Center. I'll just click close on that one for now. It's advising that you set up a two-step verification, just extra protection for the accounts on your NAS, so you can set that up if you wish. I'm going to close that one. If you want to use the NAS for multimedia purposes, it's giving you an option here to click that to enable the multimedia playback and thumbnail generation. I'll close that one. There's an option here for telling you that there's updates available in the App Center. We'll do that last. And it's telling me that data volume 1's format is completed, so we'll close that. So we'll see other items appearing in there from time to time. So as it's creating default folders, installing default apps, one of them that it'll install is our malware remover. So it'll probably tell us that the malware remover has been installed, that it's running its first scan, that the first scan is complete, that type of thing. So we'll just wait till the data volume here says that it's ready. Once it's ready, we'll be able to go through and enable things like the SSD cache. You can create other volumes, other shares. So we can see here it's popped up that it started to download malware remover. So we can see that that's in the list here. So we can get rid of that one if we want. It's not letting us dismiss the update that's available in the App Center because it wants us to update the app. So that will go away once you update the app. So the malware remover shortcut has been added to the desktop. That's fine, and we can see that it's now ready to use. So in the background, it's going to run that first malware remover scan just to confirm. It's definitely going to say there's no problems because it's a brand new NAS. We've set it up for the first time and there's no data on it yet. We haven't turned on any remote access functionality, things like that, but it's just going to get that out the way for the first one. So we can see it's still creating the default folders. While it's doing that, if you wanted to go through and change any other settings on the NAS, you can. So you can come here to the main menu, go into the control panel, manage users, do anything you want. So here in the control panel is where the bulk of the settings of the NAS are. Now these are settings mainly just for the NAS. If you install any apps from the App Center, the apps will typically have a settings area within them for their own settings, rather than being included here in the control panel. It just gives you a quick summary of the NAS at the top. You can click system status if you wish, and it gives you more information, how long the NAS has been running, things like that. And you can go to hardware information, and it tells you everything's temperatures, fan speeds, things like that. So you can get a good usage of information there. One other thing that is there's a pop-out at the top right for a dashboard, and this dashboard shows you just how much resources you're using. So on a basic setup here, the CPU is barely being used and the RAM is less than 20%. Lots of room here to do other things, virtual machines, lots of apps that you can install. And if there's any information here that you want to keep an eye on all the time, you can just grab any of these headings. So such as the resource monitor there, if I wanted to, I can just grab it and pull it out. And that's always going to stay on top. So even if I'm in other windows there, you can always see it here on your main desktop homepage. So if you wanted to keep an eye on the resources or different adapters that you've got connected, you can see all that information here. And you can click the heading to pull up the full resource monitor to go through all the different settings, options that you may have available to it. So we can see here that the volume is now ready. So now the volume's ready. I'll click this update is available in App Center now. So we'll click that and it'll show me all the different apps that have got updates available. Now you can click on each individual one and do it that way, or you can just do the update all, which is what I'll do. So it'll go off, it'll download the Q package for each one, the installation file for each one, and it'll install them automatically. There's really nothing to click, it's going to go and do all that automatically. Now while it's doing that, we'll go look at the SSD cache options. So that's in the storage and snapshot section. So I'm going to go up here to the main menu, click on storage and snapshots. And if I come down to disks, we can see that the first 4 disks are now blue, which means they're data drives, they're in use. But the 2 M.2 SSDs that I've got added are currently purple, which means they're free. So that means that I can add them to something. So in my case, I'm going to add them as a cache. So here I can click the plus button. Now it gives you an introduction on the cache and the different options you have. You can click next. So here I'm going to select the 2 M.2 SSDs. Now by default here it's selected a read-only cache in RAID 0. Now a RAID 0 for a read-only cache is okay because all the data that's in the SSDs is also on the drives. It's never only in the SSDs. If you change this to a read-write SSD cache, it will change you to a RAID 1 if you're using 2 disks, because there is a small period of time that data may only be in the SSDs until the hard drives catch up. So here you can choose RAID 1, click Next. You can choose different options here for the over-provisioning and whether it's just the random I/O or all I/O. Click Next, and now it's going to create an SSD cache. Just some things to confirm. Click I understand. Click OK, and it's going to create the SSD cache for me. So that's a summary overview, full first-time setup and installation of the 253E and the 453E, which are the new long-term availability NAS that we have. If anybody has any questions at all on these NAS, please do let us know down in the comments section down below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.